Awesome, awesome, awesome. What an amazing, amazing conversation we are going to be having today. I hope you have your notebooks. I hope you have your pens and maybe something to drink like coffee so that you will enjoy the conversation from when we begin all the way to the end. This is an important conversation, and especially with everything that is happening in the world right now. People are angry, people are in conflict, in marriages, at work, everywhere. But then this registers in the mind of children, and that is what we forget most of the time. Nasema ni mtoto tu huyu haelewi chochote, but trust me, when they grow up they have memories. And as you can see, we're going to be having Bernadette Nashelo, who is a counseling psychologist and addiction treatment counselor, taking us through this amazing, amazing conversation. So right about now, let us usher in our beautiful, gorgeous guest, taking us through this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.
It's a pleasure. Yes, and thank you for having me, both of you.
Yeah.
It's been one of those conversations that has been discussed in many spheres. So today it will be a very good opportunity for me to be able to discuss this this very awesome topic with the public and also with the two of you.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes. Before we go into the discussion, it's proper for you to briefly introduce yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, George. My name is Bernadette Nashelo Rimen, or Bernadette Nashelo Kimathi is my name. I am a counseling psychologist for the last 5 years. I have worked in many places. I've worked with children. I have worked with adults. But one of those things that I normally do is also addiction counseling, which I do in the community, specifically in Gashie and also in Kiambu areas. I am also a board member with the Counseling and Psychologist Board in Kenya. I represent the minority and marginalized groups in the board. So I have worked with, and especially now that we're talking about children, I've worked with the incarcerated mothers who are incarcerated with their children.
Yes, yes.
So I have a bit of experience under the umbrella of FIDA Kenya. We've been able to do some psychosocial support in Nyeri, in Nyeri prison, where I have been able to encounter one-on-one how it happens with the children. And that is the epitome of conflict when we're talking about conflict in the family. These are families that have been incarcerated, and they have brought children with them. So there is that aspect of children now going through the process of the jail and incarceration. I've also worked with rescue children, where children have been rescued, a rescue home, where young girls have been rescued from very toxic environments in the family. And so if we're talking about the conflict in the home affecting children, I have come one-on-one in contact with children who have experienced that kind of conflict. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. You are the right person to have
For this discussion.
Thank you.
So welcome,
sure.
Bernadette. Feel at home. Feel at the right place. Now we go straight, and I think I would love us to define what's family. When we say family conflicts, what are some of the examples of family conflicts that maybe we know, or maybe at times we don't even know?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, there are so many family conflicts, even as we look in the family. One, which is the elephant in the room, is normally communication. Communication goes beyond just speaking. It goes beyond that. It goes to how do we speak to each other? How do we communicate? What is the intention of our communication? And it goes as deep as now addressing issues of attitude. How do I say the things that I say? And when I speak about these things, what is my intention? Is my intention a peaceful intention for me to find solution, or to find, a solution so that we can be able to have a meaningful conversation? Or am I bringing in conflict because at the back of my mind, I want us to have a fight? You see, so communication is really a giant in marriage. Some other issues we are talking about and we see in marriage that brings conflict is infidelity, and the many things that come with infidelity, the mistrust and all that. Financial issues, childlessness in a marriage, family dynamics, and especially the other family members apart from the nuclear family. We have the relationships with the relatives. That also brings in conflict. When we have children with special needs, we also have sometimes it bringing a lot of conflict in our marriages or in the family. So these are just some of the conflicts that we can have. There are so many, and we can go, I mean, the whole day talking about the kind of conflicts that are found in the home. So, but these are just a bit of, a small portion of the things that we see bringing conflict in marriages.
Yes.
Yes.
And maybe now talking about children, because that is our main focus today. How do they get affected from your experience with the conflicts in the home?
Okay. So children get affected every time we have a conflict in the home.
Yeah.
For example, people ask a very vital question. When do children start getting affected? Well, there is no timeline. Now, let's consider a woman who has a pregnancy.
Yes.
And that woman a mother goes through a lot of stresses during her pregnancy years. The child also gets stressed. Why? Because the stress hormones are being released in the body of the mother. And so when we are looking at a child, even a neonate child who is not yet born, we are looking at a child now where we have to start taking care, a mother has to start taking care of herself so that she can be able to take care of the child. And if a mother is stressed, then we are looking at this neonate child being already stressed in the womb. So when this child is born, they are not also sometimes, we see them not being able to cry on time, or, they are already stressed because the hormones that are in the mother, from the brain of the mother, are also being communicated. What is happening to this child who is not yet born? They're experiencing stress, they're experiencing all these hormones being released into the mother's womb, and they do not know how to communicate. Of course, they can't even cry. Of course, there is a silent cry of the child in the womb, but then again, they are still being affected. When they are born, milestones are delayed. Those are now the things we start seeing, delayed milestones. And now when this child is born, when the stressor comes in between the 0 to 6 months, then we start seeing the child cannot be able to sit when they are supposed to sit. They cannot be able to clamp their hands when they are supposed to, because the brain is already processing stress. So there is never a time that the child cannot experience the stress. There is never an opportunity where the child cannot be stressed. So we have to be careful as parents. We have to be conscious about these things. And thank you so much for bringing this program, because we are educating the public and we are educating parents. So if you're carrying a child in the womb, it's time for them the mother to start protecting the child from the womb. Yes.
Now, that is for the child who is not yet born.
Yes.
But they're still affected by these conflicts.
Yes.
Let's talk of a child who is already born. How then or rather, at what age do they now come to realize about these conflicts?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give a very good example. The other day in Kenya, across the country, in many counties, we were seeing some butterflies, isn't it? When you walk around, you see butterflies.
Yes.
And we did not understand what these butterflies meant.
We have so many reasons for these butterflies.
Exactly. Thank you, Gigi, because that is exactly how the child interprets. They don't understand. They don't have the mental capacity to siphon what is this. I mean, and to be able to say, okay, this is a stressor. They don't even know. They don't have the language. Their brains are not developed enough for them to be able to know this is a stressor. So that is exactly how they experience stress. So even when they are young, a parent and there is conflict within the family. And let's take an example, a mother and a father. in argument. They are in a heated argument. The child is looking at them. They know it's a stressor, but they cannot be able to understand. So they're becoming more confused.
Yeah.
They're becoming also stressed. They're picking the stress also in themselves.
Yeah.
And it is traumatizing their brain. It is actually traumatizing their brain. And when the brain gets traumatized, the children behave differently.
Yeah.
You start seeing them not having enough sleep. You start seeing them being disturbed. The child withdraws.
Yeah.
We kind of like we are able to see the behavior of the child.
Yeah.
The child withdraws and they are not communicating. You know, if they are young and they used to crawl, they stop crawling. You see, they see you, they are so afraid, they don't want to, you know, their attachment style also gets affected. While as they felt so secure with their parents, you see them withdrawing and starting to be more afraid of you or of any other stranger that comes in because it is a threat. An adult represents a threat to them. So even when they are 3 months old, 6 months old, 3 years old, 6 years old, they start portraying behavior that now we get to see even in school. School-going children, they start not, you know, they are unable to understand in class. Because every time now there is that quietness, because the home is such a toxic place. When they come into the classroom, they are thinking, okay, so this is a peaceful place. It seems to be peaceful, but I'm not used to this peace. What does that happen to their brain? How does that happen to their brain? They start now replaying what is happening in the home. So the child, the teacher starts complaining, oh, this child is not understanding. This child is not grasping the concepts that I'm trying to teach them. But it's because they are so preoccupied in their minds about the conflict at home, which they don't know is actually a conflict. But it has already shaken their brain, and it has already created that trauma in their brain. So that is what happens to a child.
So the implication, it's dire.
It's actually dire. If only we understood the child, where they are coming from, and understood the responsibility we have as parents, then we will take these things very seriously, very seriously.
And there's this lady I love following. Her name is Lisa Bevere, and she was explaining the fact that from where she was born, the culture, the Italians and all that. There's a way they are very sharp with words and all that. The environment she grew up in. And she was talking about how conflict was solved when she was young. And even not just even between the mom and the dad, but even the mom towards her, So you find that she would say that she went for a very long time not forgiving her mom because sometimes the mom would literally pick her up and slam her on the wall simply because she has done something wrong. And she grew up with that hatred. She grew up with that fear. But even when she got her own children, when she now stepped into marriage, what happened is that this one time she was holding her baby and about to slam her on the wall, just like it happened to her. And it's at that point she realized the very thing I've never forgiven my mom for is the very thing that I'm doing right now myself. So maybe even as we have talked about how it affects the children in the young age, how does it also show up when someone is an adult towards their own children?
Towards their own children. Wow, that's a really good example of how hurt people also hurt other people. You see, the way children learn is by schema. And I'll give you this example. If a child grew up and there was a dog in the family, it walks on its 4 feet. I mean, it has the 4 feet and it also has a tail and it barks. So when this child goes to the village and sees a cow, the child will relate to that. Okay, it walks on 4s. It has a tail. Why is in this? This is a big dog. You see, it's bigger, but it's a dog because that is what the child has been used to. And the child will ask, how comes this big dog does not bark? You see, this big dog does not bark. That is a schema. So now when we go to the family setup where there is violence, and this violence does not have to be the parent. It can be the caregiver. I'll give an example of when I was growing up. We had a very violent house help. My mother was a working mom. And this, she was really toxic. She would use very bad words in the absence of my mother. We were very, very scared. And because we were so scared, I, on the other side, I found myself as a young child, I was violent to other young children. I would pinch them, I would kick them, I would hurt them. Because that is the schema I knew as a young child. That violence is okay to have, and to me it's not violence. That's how children are treated. And I can relate to that lady when she was experiencing. That is how she was being treated by the mother. So we tend to do these things unknowingly because they are implanted in our, in our brains. That is how we handle conflict. This is when a child is crying and we don't understand. The first thing we want to do is beat them up. Stop crying. We don't want to understand, why is this child crying? You see. So it is true, when we grow up, even our attachment style, how we attach to people, we don't attach, and at the back of our minds, we are very conflicted. And we have experienced violence, and so trust issues creep in into our relationships. So it affects us in a way that even when we get married, we are not truly trusting of this other person. And we also have a tendency of verbal violence. We are verbal bullies. There's somebody who can bully you with their words until you feel you have been beaten to a pulp. But they have only used words. You see? Now, when we come across such people, we want to understand where are they coming from? It is how they were brought up. It is the words that were used when they were very young. If, for example, in my case, my mother was not that violent, but the caregiver, the primary house, the primary caregiver who we were being left with was a very violent lady. And she would use such violent words with us. And she would take anything, whether it was a cup. One time, I remember, as funny as it seems, she really hit my sister with a cabbage on the head.
Oh my.
I know we can laugh about it right now, but it was not funny. But my sister snapped. And the violence that she was given, she also became violent to her, and she really beat up our house help.
Wow.
That was the end of the house help.
Oh my. How old was she?
She was around, I think she was 10.
What? Beat up the house help? Who is a grown woman who has children. So you can imagine the anger that used to build inside her. And using very violent words and telling her, and body shaming. You see, those are things that we overlook. And we bully our children sometimes with words. We tell them, oh, you see, now you are such a big boy, or you are such a big girl. How can you behave? Shaming. And that is how children learn to be bullies in school. And we wonder sometimes when the teacher comes to us and says, your child beats up other children, and you say, no, my child cannot beat up any child. Because we are used to beating children in the house, and they are very timid in the house because you are the parent. You are the primary caregiver. They trust you. So when you beat them, they feel guilty. They are always feeling guilty. And even when the father and the mother have this kind of confrontation, the child sometimes tries to come in as a peacemaker. And when it doesn't work, the child blames themselves. And that is when you have now children having this, they carry a lot of guilt. And when they carry a lot of guilt, you now see it in their behavior. Even when they are grown up, when they go to school, they become bullies, they become victims of bullying. Why? Because the child has been used to being bullied from home. They are always so timid, they cannot stand up for themselves. So even in relationships, they'll pick a husband or a wife who is going to give them the same kind of treatment they have received from home. So it's a vicious circle.
It's a very vicious one.
Very vicious cycle. Yes.
And you mentioned something in terms of the symptoms that children, especially affected by family conflict, they exhibit. And how then can we help them in terms of caregivers, parents, teachers, even to a larger extent, community, when we see that this is a child who has been affected by this family conflict, and they are now showing those signs that you mentioned earlier in school, in their behavior as well. How then do we come in?
Okay. Now, as the community, as teachers, as parents, even in our, in our workspaces, once we get to see these children, one of the things we can be able to and this is the way we can be able to look at it, how badly off is a child. Sometimes the violence that is meted on the child is so severe, the child needs rescuing. Yes, so we have to look at how bad is this situation? Is the child having physical, wounds? If a child has physical wounds, then we need to intervene, and we need to use some of the resources that are available that we can talk about, and how the government has come in and how it has availed resources. But we need to first of all examine the child and see, is this child in a place where now they need rescuing, or are they emotionally so damaged that they need a counselor or a child therapist? We now need to look at them in that way. Or is there something that I can be able to do with the parent and the child to be able to be a go-between, so that I can be able to create that peace and create awareness to the parent? If it is not so severe, then you need to talk to the child. You need to befriend the child. There is no way you can break through that wall that they have built unless you are able to relate with a child. In school, for example, let me talk about institutions that we have. There is the institution of marriage and home, and then we come, the next place we see children and how they exhibit the behavior is in school. If a teacher is able to see these signs, the child withdraws, they are always stressed, they are very violent, they use bad words and bad language. That is how we are able, they are not able to understand in school. They wet their pants or the dress when they're in school. They're not able to it's like they are so afraid they're not able to control their bladder. It is a sign of stress from home, or that child is experiencing a lot of stress. So when in school we see these things happen, we have to intervene. The good thing about schools nowadays is that they have counselors, school counselors. So they can be able to do that. They can be able to engage the school counselor to be able to intervene. Then the parent also can be called and be told how the child is behaving. When it is in the community, unfortunately, when you come to the community, of course, nowadays the community is like, oh, that's another family, I cannot intervene. Yes. Now, the only time that the community is able to intervene in a situation where the child has been so battered, it's when they see the physical, the physical hurt, that they can see the wounds, they can see the child is so stressed and the child is withdrawn, the child is looking for food somewhere else in the dustbins. Now the community, they can be able to come in, and there are numbers they can be able to dial, and they can be able to get help. But in the family, to curb this, when you see your child withdrawing, they bedwet, they are always so angry, they are always, exhibiting these behaviors of anger or withdrawing, they want to go under the bed, especially young children. They go where they feel safe. So under the bed, you want to go there. Sometimes you want to just talk to them, befriend them, ask them what is hurting, what they feel. They'll only tell you, and sometimes they come up with sicknesses. You can see a child is sick, they have fever. You take them to hospital. There is really nothing wrong with them. They're experiencing stress. So we call this psychosomatic, psychosomatic disorders. Where and in the community it's called ugonjwa wa hapa na pale. They're having a headache today. The next day they're having a backache. The other time they are fainting. The other time, you see, this is a sign of stress. This is a sign of stress. So we want to intervene at that point and be able to engage the child. Yes.
We are laughing, and really, especially in our culture, we usually say, mtoto akona stress. How? Anafikiria nini huyu?
that was even the point I wanted to raise, because in our society right now, we don't believe that children also have something called mental illness, or that the mental health of children is just as important as that of adults. Or even actually, when you think about it, we have children committing suicide nowadays, even at the age of 9, very young age. And I remember doing a story one time, a report, and apparently this child came home with poor results. And then what happened? The mom akamkelelesha, and then akamlock kwa nyumba.
Wow.
And then the mom went. When the mom came back, the child had committed suicide in the house. So this is after the child has brought in the results, and the response that they got from their parents literally led them to do this thing. So you can imagine the guilt even on the side of the mom. And most of the time we think reprimanding them, shouting and releasing our stress to the children is a solution, but actually it's not. Because again, another story I did, and it was so sad, I was just finding myself having such stories being thrown my way. Another one, the child is looking for socks, anatafuta, alafu mamake anamuuliza ulieka socks wapi, anafaa kwenda shule, and the child is looking and is tense, and then the mom literally took a knife and started cutting the nails of the child. Imagine. So the child has blisters everywhere simply because they could not find the socks. And I think I want to bring this together in terms of now back to my story of Lisa Bevier, because what she said is that she called her mom, after she found herself doing that, and told the mom that I'm sorry that I held this for so long and I did not forgive and release you. Because I think sometimes when, she was talking about the fact that I had not forgiven my mom and I had not released my mom, it did not allow me to find healing. And I think most of the time when people are acting this way, it's because they were hurt before, but then they have not done their due diligence in terms of healing from the past trauma. So maybe you can talk about the importance even of the people, the parents, because hurt people hurt people. We look at Joyce Meyer saying that the dad sexually molested her for 15 years, but then later on in his old age, the dad said that this is what he went through. He went through it as a child also. So he was hurting her because that is what also he too went through. So maybe you can talk about this vicious cycle. How do we end it, and how important is forgiveness and healing even as we now approach motherhood?
All right. Thank you so much. Now, yes, what all that you have said, I can relate, and I can only empathize with all those people because they are victims.
Yeah.
But when we look at the victim, sometimes the person who is who is having that violence to the victim, the violent person is also going through something.
That's true.
For us parents, we need to be aware. Consciously. We need to be aware of our own experiences. We need to be in touch with ourselves. First of all, sometimes we need to do our own healing. Because before we do our own healing, we are unable to even be able to nurture and nature another being who is now who comes as somebody who is dependent on us as a child, or as a sister we have taken, or a brother we have taken from probably our deceased parents. Now we are orphaned and we have taken in another child. We are actually now nurturing them and nurturing them. So before we do that, we need to start with our own healing. It is so important. And we cannot overemphasize the resources that we have. We can use our churches for healing, for example. We can use the spirituality that we have, or even the mosques, or whatever spiritual, inclination we have. We can use that as a place of healing. Because some of these wounds are so deep. And the people who hurt us or created that wound, and for example, I'll take a child who is orphaned and is being tossed from one family to another. So who does this child run to for healing? Apart from using the resources they have, a spiritual resource that they have, that they can be able to heal. Secondly, we have toll-free numbers for counseling. They can actually be able to embrace such toll-free numbers that they can be able to use so that they can call. For children, we have 116 if you have a child in distress. And also 0722 116 116. That is a toll-free number. That is the 0722, you can use it for WhatsApp, and you can use it also for messaging for a child who is in distress.
Okay.
We have and we have so many numbers that we can use for people who want to access help, especially in distress when they have marital issues, there is conflict in the family, rescuing of children, because sometimes a child needs rescuing. But when we are talking about an adult needs to be aware that it is the time for me to start healing. And how do I find healing? Sometimes you can even just talk to your friend, and when you have been, separated from the community and you have been separated from your loved one, it is a very dangerous place to be. Sometimes you are unable to become a resource to yourself. You need other external resources. So we need to be open to receive from others. You see, from now I'll talk about churches because I'm a person who goes to church. Churches have availed resources. If you're a single mother, there are single mothers resources that you can get from the church. You can go to your clergy, your pastor, your women's ministry leader, or somebody who is a leader in church if you really need help. And you can actually take your family with you so that you can find those resources to be able to help you heal. You see, if, for example, people who have gone through bereavement and sometimes traumatic experiences, an accident, and even themselves were victims of harassment, of rape, and all those things that we experience in our daily lives. People can be able to heal from these things using the resources that are available. And even when you see a danger and you are in any and a child or an adult, we have hospitals like Nairobi Women's Hospital that takes rape victims, you see, and is able to help them, and even they give them counselling. And even when you go with a child who has been traumatized, even when you present yourself to the police station, you will find help because we have specialized care and police have also resources that they can be able to engage you and also direct you. So it doesn't matter where you go. When you feel the need and the need is dire and there is somebody who is in danger, please do not stay at home with the danger and the hurt that is going on, physical, emotional. Don't stay at home with it and just suffer the consequences of that. You need to find help, even if it is your chief, or wherever, even if it's your neighbor, talk to somebody. Don't stay there with that kind of trauma within yourself, because you are also going to hurt somebody else. But we need also to be aware of ourselves and prioritize our mental health. Because I know we always say, unajua mimi ni mtu mzima, I can handle this. But there is sometimes our thresholds are different. There is only so much a human being can go through. And if there are resources, why not use these resources for you to find healing so that at least you can be able to take care of other people around you. Yes.
Right. And this is implications of family conflict to children. And to help us with this conversation, we have Bernadette Nashelo. She's a counseling psychologist and also addiction treatment counselor. Any question you could be having, send it to 0708 222 323 across all our social media platforms as well, and we will be going through them even as we come back and continue with our conversation. For now, we take a short commercial break, and then we come back, we continue with our conversation this morning.
The CITAM Joint Men Leadership invites all men to the annual men's hike dubbed The Great Beyond, drawn from Joshua chapter 13 verse 1b, that says, "There remains much land yet to be possessed." The ascent will take place at Ngong Hills on the 16th of March 2024 from 7:30 a.m. Charges are 800 Kenya shillings for adults and 700 Kenya shillings for children, paid through their respective assemblies. We shall have a great time in worship led by men's chorale, great fellowship among other men, and a culmination of a sermon on the Mount by Reverend Jesse Mwai. Come, let's ascend together as we take new territories. Kindly register through your local assembly.
Are you ready to celebrate the brilliance, resilience, and outstanding achievements of remarkable women in East Africa? Hope Media, in partnership with BH Media Agency, brings you the East Africa Women of Excellence Awards Kenyan Chapter. The East Africa Women of Excellence Awards Kenyan Chapter aims at celebrating and honoring the unsung women, trailblazers, and the change makers in various fields of influence. Visit our website at www.womenofexcellenceawards.co and nominate a woman of impact in the various categories. The nominees will be unveiled on Friday the 15th of March 2024. For partnership and sponsorship, call Eunice on 0719-863-336 or Warren on 0724-514-998. You can also email customer experience at hopefm.org. The East Africa Women of Excellence Awards, recognizing East Africa women of impact.
Aya, I'm not go TV stream. It's free.
Go TV Stream iko mkononi na ni free. Download Go TV Stream app for free. Enjoy live TV na shows kamia nane. Download and watch later, anytime, anywhere. Go TV Stream iko mkononi na ni free. Available to active subscribers. Go TV, love it.
Welcome back to our conversation this morning, family conflicts and the implication on children. And we have Bernadette who is helping us with this conversation. And we left it at the point we wanted to know because the bulk of the responsibility lies with the parents. So how then can they cushion their children from harm, from different forms of trauma when they are having conflicts?
All right. Okay. For parents, it has to be very intentional because I think from the beginning of time, families have experienced, even from our first family, the Christian family that we know, Adam and Eve, they had a conflict.
Yeah.
And that is how we ended up here. So conflicts are inevitable. That's what we say. Conflicts are inevitable. They are born to happen. But it is the how we deal with the conflicts and the when we choose to deal with the conflict that also matters. And also being aware that we have children in the home. For example, if we are going to speak about very sensitive matters, is it possible for us to speak away from the children? And if we are going to have this heated conversation as parents, is it possible to have it away from the children, especially the young ones? The adult children can be able to understand. And in fact, they can even be part of that conversation that you want to resolve this conflict. Sometimes we also want to choose our rules of engagement. Why? Because we want to say, how are we going to address this conflict and what words are we going to use? It can actually be a very big conflict that we have in the family. But now choosing our rules of engagement says that probably we choose a place. You know, let us choose a place and a time when we can be able to handle this conflict. If it can wait for us to be able to sit at the dining table when the children have gone, then can we choose that time and we sit? Sometimes there are conflicts we have, they are so deep that we need to handle them outside the home. We want another person to come in. For example, maybe a friend whom we trust or somebody who can be able to be a go-between or be able to help us resolve, or somebody who has gone through a conflict like ours and they can be able to do so. Those are the rules of engagement, for example. That's just a small example of the rules of engagement. We also have conflict between parents and children. And that one is the one that is very key to our conversation. Because children will always go wrong. And why shouldn't they? They don't know. Sometimes they are unaware that this is actually going to cause a conflict. And we as the parents, as their custodians, we need to provide a safe space for them even when they have gone wrong. How can we correct this in love? Yes, sometimes we get annoyed and sometimes we show that to the children. But at the end of the day, are we able to sit down with them even when we are giving them punishment? we have to make sure that they understand why we are punishing them, why we have given them that naughty rod that we give if we are going to use the rod. Up to what extent? We even can negotiate with children. There are children who have negotiated, oh, you know, mom, you know, you can't tell me to wash all the dishes. You say, no, you have to, because, you know, yes, it's a chore, but then again, this is a punishment for you. You are going to do this and that. You are going to read this book. No, okay, reading is not a punishment, but for example, a child who has been slacking on their assignments, you want to give them extra work. It's not supposed to be a punishment. They need to understand, I want to cultivate a discipline in you of being able to finish up your assignments, and this one will also spill over into your life. I want to cultivate something in you that you need to learn. You can even have that conversation. I like it when parents have that conversation. I have one of those children who you cannot just punish. They really challenge you, but I like it.
Yes.
He even quotes the Bible.
Yes.
And this one is by far one of those children that you have to engage.
Yes.
It tells you, but you see, the Bible says when you punish in love.
In love. Yeah.
But you see, this is a child who has found a safe space. You see, this is a child who has found.
Engage with
you can engage. And yes, sometimes you are very annoyed. You want to tell them, right now, I am so annoyed with you. and you know, I'm so annoyed with you. Let me take time and cool off, and then we talk about this issue. You see? And then they'll tell you, you know, you don't listen to me. And then you tell them, okay, fine. Now, this is your turn. Now talk.
Yes.
Then they talk and they talk and they talk and they talk. And then you tell them, okay, so now, okay, let me have this conversation with you. You see, this is where you have gone wrong, and this is why. Do you see the mistake you have made? We need to have those open conversations with our children. And even when we are annoyed, they see we are annoyed and they have annoyed us, let us take time to cool off first before we engage them. Because when you punish a child at the heated moment of anger, you might hurt them. You see? And you might say things that they will carry as trauma for the rest of their lives. So sometimes we also need to be very, you know, intentional with our children. We need to take time and also study the characters of our children, because they have all been gifted with different gifts. We want to come from a place of understanding as parents. We want to be that parent that a child, even when they have done the biggest and the baddest mistake, they still can come to you. You see, we also have children who are grown up, and sometimes they will sneak out of the house. You want that child, even when they have snuck out of the house, they want to, when they see the danger out there, they can be comfortable to call dad and to call mom. Now, those are the things that we need to make them so comfortable. They know mom is strict, dad is strict. These are the boundaries. These are the boundaries I cannot go beyond. And when I go beyond, then I should always come back to them in a remorseful way. And we teach children even how to apologize by us apologizing. Sometimes we hurt our children. It is okay for a parent to tell their children, I'm sorry. It is not a weakness. I'm still your parent, but I'm sorry this happened and this is how it was handled. Can we now start afresh and have this conversation and know that these are the boundaries. These are the healthy boundaries that I've set as your parent. I don't like this because this is the value that we hold as a family. Make them understand. And you'll hear them in their conversations with other children. Children talk. And they will tell their teachers things. And sometimes you will not be very amused by the things. But these are the things we pick. But we need also to understand where they're coming from. They're children and they're learning from us. And we need to correct even that which was wrong with understanding and love. Yes.
And I think I would love us to camp on a point that you said about parents apologizing to the children.
Yes.
Because this is not something common. And, you know, it just reminded me of...
It's alien.
It's alien. I'm telling you, it's alien because especially in our culture, I mean, it's almost like, oh my goodness, ataniona aje, you know? And I was watching a video, Dr. Anita Phillips having an interview with Oprah Winfrey. And the question was, what is that moment that you felt grace extended to you? And it was so shocking for Dr. Anita Phillips to say, the moment I felt grace extended to me is when my daughter forgave me. Because she acted, and she was annoyed, Nali burst out, but then went to the child and said, I am sorry. And this girl was like, I forgive you, mom. And even later on, continued to respect her mom, and their relationship even became stronger.
Yes.
So I feel that even though people feel this is not okay, it actually is a good thing, and it could work for the benefit. And this informs them, this is how you solve conflict wherever you go.
Exactly.
So that was really good to just bring that up. Yeah.
As we come to the close of our conversation, because time, we are looking at time and we're like, it's amazing. It's amazing. But someone is watching us this morning, a dad, a mom, parents, and they feel, one way or the other, their conflict has really affected their children, their child, one way or the other. Where can they start?
All right. That's a very good question, George. And yes, a parent can start from anywhere. I'll give an example of my family. I've had a very elderly parent come to us and say, my children, I think I was wrong, even in the things that I did.
Yeah.
I was wrong, I didn't know better, but I'm glad to see that you're here, and you're here to forgive me.
Yeah.
So now, the thing is this, even a grandparent can ask for forgiveness. There is never a time where we cannot have a conversation with that, whether they are adult children, whether they are younger children, whether they are your grandchildren. You can always start from anywhere. Every day, and this is a gift that God gives us, every day is a new day. You sleep and wake up, it's a new day. So take that new day and say, okay, from today, I am going to be intentional. I'm going to call my children if they are grown up and say, let us have a sitting. Let us have coffee together and let us start forgiving one another. With your young children, today is the day that you can start having that conversation with them. Today is the day when you can start doing it right. Parenting right, not that you have been doing it wrong, because parenting, there is no right or wrong way. But now that you have become aware about these things, I mean, there are so many resources that we can use. We can even read books. We can see talk shows like the one that we have today. We can get information that we didn't have before. So a parent can start from anywhere, and they can start doing it right. Say to yourself, have that conversation with yourself and say, okay, so today, can I start by forgiving myself? Because many parents carry unforgiveness within themselves. Okay, of course, people go wrong, and they can never find it in themselves to forgive themselves. The first person you want to forgive is yourself. Secondly, you want to make amends with yourself and say, I can start, I can do it right from today. Because if you're coming from a place of guilt, then there is no place you're saying, I can start doing it right today. So you can start it today, and you can make amends and start having that initiative. Have those conversations with your children. Call them in together, have family time, meaningful family time. I know we are very busy people, but I know Saturdays and Sundays, maybe those times you have with your family, allocate time for your family so that you can have these discussions with your family. So you can start anywhere. Yes.
Thank you. And because of time, even as you're giving us your parting shot, also where we can be able to get you.
All right. Okay. My parting shot is that a parent is a very important person in a child's life. We can never take it for granted that God has given us this particular moment to be with our children. And it is such a noble task to be a parent. And I want to tell all parents, kudos, you're doing a good job, and you can do even better.
Thank you.
I can be found on 0722 684 913 0722 684 913 is my number. You can reach out to Bernadette, is my name, or Nashelo. And yes, I can be able to direct even people for help. But for children in dire need, 116 is the number, toll-free number to getting help. There is counseling there. There are resources, even medical help. They can be able to be accessed through that helpline. That is a helpline that is conducted by the government, actually. And so it is a very reliable number, 24/7. they are available for counseling.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Bernadette.
You're most
really
welcome.
appreciate
Thank
for your
you.
wisdom and your motherly love. You know, we could feel it. I could
Yeah.
feel it personally as you shared that
Yes.
wisdom. Thank you so much, and more grace,
Thank you.
even as you serve
Thank you.
as well. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, this was so wholesome.
It
It
was.
was good. I've gotten to learn so much. I mean, whether you're married or not, this is a conversation for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's either you are in marriage and, you know, like Gigi, you've mentioned that you relate perfectly.
Yeah, yeah.
And it could be you may not be married, but then you have not really dealt with what you saw as a child. And you need to work on that. I think the biggest takeaway was that healing part, doing the work on you, even before you go into marriage, so that you're not literally bringing the same things you went through with your parents to your own family. And you've mentioned that it's just in the subconscious. You don't even know what you're doing
Yes.
until you realize, oh, I haven't dealt with it. And also the issue of forgiveness and healing, which is important to move forward. So I've been able to learn quite a lot. And I believe that even the parents watching, you know, the teenagers, whoever it is, that this has been a wholesome conversation. Remember to share it. It is on YouTube at Hope TV Kenya, Hope at Dawn. Andika tu hapo Hope TV Kenya, Hope at Dawn. You will see this particular episode on conflict and how it impacts children, you know, in a family setup. So this has been good. This has really been good.
And appreciating the entire team that made
Yes.
this a success. Pose, our camera person, our director as well, Ndiku Mutinda, also Eunice, our producer. Thank you so very much. And God bless you as well. As we go
Yes.
out today, may God go with you. May He bless you and may He do great and mighty things in you and also through you. From me, George Gishoro, it's bye-bye for now.
And my name is Beatrice Watare. See you guys next week on Monday.
Right.